Hey everyone, we have another legend on this week's episode. But before we get started, remember to hit the like, share, subscribe, listen, and download buttons, as well as leave us a review wherever you listen. This allows us to bring you the amazing guests and content you have come to expect. Now, let's get to the show. Today's guest is a prolific writer, surfer, and fifth-degree black belt professor under Royler Gracie, Kid Peligro. Listen as he tells wonderful stories of growing up with the Gracie family, training under legends Royler and Rickson Gracie, how he trains world champion surfers, and the similarities between Jiu Jitsu, surfing, and life. Here is the ROL Radio with the dangerous kid, Gerry Kid Peligro Costa.
Welcome to ROL Radio.
And we are live. Gerry, how are you, sir?
I am doing really well today.
It's good to see you.
Oh, I don't know about that. If you don't know, we're finally working and doing this together in the same room. It used to be totally remote. So now we have to actually interact with each other physically as well as on the podcast. So, but real quick, before we get started today, I would like to talk about Fuji Sports and our gi giveaway. We've given away 5 or 6 so far. We've got the rest of the year to go, once a month. Listen for your name at the end of the episode, and you got 72 hours from the time I email you to claim your prize. All you have to do to enter is go to therolradio.com, take a one question survey. How easy could it be? And you're automatically entered, and they make amazing products. So why not? Who doesn't want a free gi?
Well, I think at this point, I'm a little puzzled because some people didn't claim, or some people talk about entering, but they don't. I don't understand why they wouldn't.
I don't know.
But listen, it's there. So if that's something that's an interest to you, then go to the site and drop your name, and we'll definitely draw this up. We got still, I think, six to go rest of the year, right? So
yep.
Guys at Fuji hook us up pretty well. So shout out to them. Shall we start this great conversation?
Absolutely. Let's get going.
All right. Sweet. Outstanding. Professor Kid Peligro in the house. How are you, sir, doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Fantastic.
We are fantastic. How is Hawaii treating you? Because, here in Chicago, it's pretty cloudy right now.
Oh, it's been beautiful day after beautiful day. Hawaii is paradise.
Yeah.
Thanks for rubbing it.
I could have swam to work today. That's how much rain we've been getting.
Whoa. We do get rain.
Yeah. But we've been in a drought, and I think I've got a small garbage can in my backyard that's it's got about that much in it from yesterday and today.
That much. You're showing about 2 feet. So.
Yeah. I forget.
Well, but listen, I think what's interesting, to start this conversation, that Kid Peligro is actually not your name. That's your nickname that you got a long time ago. And I know just from personal conversations with other individual students and instructors in jiu-jitsu community, some people don't even know that. They think that that's your name. How did that surface? Where did it come from?
Well, it's funny because I trained a friend of mine for a year, and one day he come to me and he said, "I learned something today. Kid Peligro is not your name." I thought everybody knew. So what happens is in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, people have nicknames to everybody, and my friend Felipe Gama, who was one of my original training partners, he used to beat me up all the time. And I was kind of the worst guy in the academy. So he nicknamed me the Dangerous Kid. Kid Peligro, and it just the nicknames kind of stuck between the friends. And then at one point I started writing for 80 Combat, ADCC News, and it was supposed to be just a quick gig, just do it for a little while until I found somebody to do it permanent. So I said, I'm going to put my name as Kid Peligro because then nobody's going to know, and then I can go on with my life. And it caught on, and people were just, they were all like fascinated by the name. And I remember one time Alan Goy's wife called me up and said, we want to get an interview, but the person who really want to get an interview is from Kid Peligro. She's talking to me. She doesn't know. I heard he's 17 years old and he knows everything. And I go, I'm Kid Peligro. And then another time I had Fabiano Iha, who was a really good friend. And he called me up. He was upset about something. And he got Kid Peligro's number from somebody. So he calls up Kid Peligro and he's just reading me the riot act. And blah, 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 blah. I said, Fabiano, it's me. And I go, I know it's you, kid, blah, blah, blah. I said, no, it's Gerry. I go, oh, and I said, Gerry, friends of Sheikh Tahnoon. I said, oh my God, we started laughing. So, yeah, it's an interesting thing. And nowadays, you know, I'm training a lot of surfers and everything, and living in North Shore, nobody knows my name. Everybody calls me Kid, and it's super funny when I introduce myself to other people and they say, what's your name? I say, oh, my name is Kid. And they look at, you know, all the white hair and stuff like that. So they just kind of like, you know, what the hell? But yeah.
What a great story. So like on a serious note, were you dangerous? Dangerous kid? Were you dangerous?
No, I wasn't. I once caught Felipe by mistake. You know, he just made a mistake and I caught him. And that's when he goes, oh, Kid Peligro, that's for real. But, you know, in time I got better. But in the beginning, if you wanted to beat somebody up, I was the guy you came to train.
I know that feeling. I've been there.
I think everybody at some point ends up on the bottom and getting smashed.
Yeah.
Part of the journey, right?
Yeah, and I'm 5'7". At the time, I think I was 125. I'm 140 now, you know. You train jiu-jitsu, put on a little bulk. But people would just beat me up all the time. It was just, you know. But I was resilient and I kept at it, and eventually, you know, I started getting a little better, and then, you know, finally made it.
How did this all started for you? So what was the beginning, the very first time you step on the mat and you explore jiu-jitsu?
Okay, so I had this friend, Felipe's older brother, Carlos Gama.
Yeah,
really good friend of mine, and we surfed together and hung out. And we went on a trip to Tavaroa Island in Fiji, and he'd been trying to get me to train. And then every day, all day in Tavaroa, he'd say, oh, you got to train. I said, no, it's, you know, jiu-jitsu's for hoodlums. They just want to fight on the streets. I go, no. And he was just getting on my case so much. I finally said, okay, coach, drop the subject. When we get home, I'll go one class. So he said, okay. So when we got home, I actually went, my first class was at Nelson Montero's garage. It was just before UFC 1, and Nelson Montero was teaching at his garage. And really, you opened the garage door and you had mat, barely 200 square feet. And I had, you know, my first few lessons there. And then I think within a month, Felipe Gama said, hey, we got to go to Rickson's. I said, you know, it's an hour away. I don't want to go over there. Jiu-jitsu, you know, it's all the same, takedown, blah, blah. He goes, no, you gotta go. And we went to Laguna Niguel Racket Club where Rickson would teach classes. And my first class, my mind was just going, because before I thought, okay, jiu-jitsu, but if I take a really big guy or a really strong guy, this thing is not going to work. And what Rickson showed me, just on my first class, it was just going, oh my gosh, this is different, you know. Not to take anything away from Nelson, but Rickson has you know, he's the best, you know.
Well, he's known for very unique teaching style. He can break down the motion in such a fundamental way.
Right.
Think about that, right? What was going? Let me inside your head. What was going on in your head when Rickson, you were there with Rickson? First of all, is this a class? Is this a private lesson?
It was a private lesson.
There's 1-to-1, you and Rickson.
1-to-1.
People right now would kill for this, and you.
Yeah. I know. It was. I knew him from surfing, you know, but not in jiu-jitsu. And when I was there, I was pretty nervous. I was really nervous. He's imposing, an energy about him. You know, he's just really an imposing person. And he starts talking, and you don't want to open your mouth. And so he started talking and showing me little things, and it just, you know, I was just kind of I was literally blown away. And I think I went with my wife, and she wasn't training at the time, you know, I was just starting. And she said my eyes were just like, my face was just completely blown away. And when we left and we drove back, I was just kind of like, I couldn't even believe what I had learned, witnessed, experienced.
How old are you at this point?
Now, then?
Yeah.
38?
So a little, you started a lot.
Or
older
maybe
than-
28, maybe 28.
28.
It was 1982. Yeah, 28.
Yeah. So you started later in
Late. Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Okay.
I started late.
So not only you were, later in, and you upper 20s or 30s, somewhere there, right? Plus you were by far smaller stature than average person there would be, right?
I was the smallest guy always.
So let's touch on that topic. And I think this is so interesting because jiu-jitsu is known for, balance and weight manipulation and so on, escaping from stronger and larger opponents and so on. We know all this, but what a lot of people don't talk about, what is their experience of the smaller person, and especially, you're not 18 at that point, you're 29.
Right.
So there's some years in, and you're just starting this. What is your experience throughout your jiu-jitsu journey, being the smaller guy in the academy and learning this art, these motions, and so on?
Well, it was a lot of suffering, a lot of tapping, but like I said, I'm pretty resilient and pretty stubborn. And I mean, my gosh, I had the best instructors, in Rickson and Royler, and Nelson went to Abu Dhabi almost right away. So, the time I spent with him was great, but he moved to Abu Dhabi to teach, to shake there. But anyways, with Rickson and Royler, I learned. So Rickson first would break. Rickson was before Royler because Royler was living in Rio. So I was driving to Laguna Niguel once a week, Tuesdays, and I get there 8:00 in the morning and try to hope, that I would get a private. Somebody would not show up. So I'd be just sitting on the mat, and Rickson would allow me to sit on the mat, watch him teach. And then I was just hoping, praying that somebody would not show up so I get a class. So I watched him teach a lot. And he would just kind of basically empower you with his knowledge and his technique. It was just physics, mathematics and physics, there's micro differences in positions that make a huge difference. And he would just kind of give me that. And then later in time, I still kind of go, well, this works, but it's Rickson, and then when I went with Royler, and Royler was about my size and the same thing was working, it just blew my mind. But one of the funny stories about Rickson is that Rickson is not much to give compliments, quite the opposite. He's just kind of like, so one time, and my real name is Gerry, and he used to call me Gaddy. Hey, Gaddy. So one time I'm training with him, and we learn, and then we spar, and he does a little, and he turns to me and he said, Gaddy, you fight like a lion, but you are old, weak, slow, and not flexible. That's not working for you. You're dying here. He goes, you need to fight like a rat. I go, the rat lives in your house, eats your food, doesn't pay any rent. The only time the rat fights back is when he's cornered. So you just gotta be like a rat. The light turns off, you go nibble on the food. Light turns on, you disappear again. So that really changed my mindset. And then the emphasis was in surviving. And I got really good at defense and surviving. And then when the lights would turn out, which is when the guys would get tired, that was my time to attack. So if we went on a 5-minute roll with just about anybody, I basically survived. If we went on a 10-minute roll, things started turning my way. If we went on a 15-minute roll, now things would, because I'd frustrate the person. I had such good defense, and I was calm the whole time. So I never breathed hard. So that was a really big lesson then.
Do you think that fundamentally changed how your outlook on jiu-jitsu period and on life?
Yes, I was just going to add that. It changed my outlook in jiu-jitsu. But jiu-jitsu is like life. When you're put in these situations in jiu-jitsu, you get on a submission hold, somebody's choking you. It's like highly stressful, but you know that you can just go like this and it stops. So it's, you know, it's a fake stress, but the brain doesn't differentiate real from fake. Mm-hmm. So when you go into work situations, family situations, you know, anything, you have this mindset of how to adjust, how to behave, how to think. You know, I usually say things like, when I teach, and I say, you know, when you're training with somebody and he's got you in a bad position, it's like the guy has a gun in your head and he's got the gun cocked, ready to go off. If you're not thinking ultra clear, or you're a little too hasty, and he shoots. So when you got that situation, you got to be as calm as possible and try to reason and ration out and figure it out. If you go too fast or you get jumpy, you know, you lose your life. So, but that really fundamentally changed my life.
I mean, that's some deep wisdom right there. I mean, I wrote it down and I'm still processing it. First of all, I love the analogy of lion and rats because, but that's really lifelike. That's so that's something that I would see Rickson really say it. It's.
Oh yeah, no, I have a few stories from him and Royler too. Once in a while, you ask Royler a question, and one time I talked to my friend Alan Hopkins, which is a black belt from Pedro Sauer. And he had a similar experience. And you asked Royler a question, and he gave you what in the beginning you would think, my gosh, he's just not telling me anything. He's just hiding, or he's just kind of blowing me off. And then it takes time, you know, like one time, for example, I was taking a class from him or training with him. And I said, Royler, my closed guard is really, really good. My open guard stinks. What do I do? He paused for a minute and he said, keep him in your closed guard.
Yeah. Groundbreaking, right?
Yeah, groundbreaking. Duh. So it took me a little while, and I figured, no, when they open my guard, my objective is not to fight open guard, is to put him back in my closed guard.
Yeah.
But it took me a while to. So some of these simplistic answers that they give you, you know, they're very deep actually.
Yeah. It reminds me, Thomas, I asked him, you know, I've been getting caught in a lot of triangles, and I can survive. You know, I've got some decent ways of surviving through them. Do you have any escapes for me? And he said, just don't get caught in triangles. And
there you go. That's what he told Alan Hopkins. It's the exact same answer. And then it just sounds like nothing, but fundamentally, you just got to understand that don't wait till you get caught. Mm-hmm. So you start defending at the very early stages, and you have neutralize early. If you get to the final thing, you know, then it's a 50-50 or less than 50-50 chance. But if you apply that in all your positions in Jiu Jitsu, so that's one of the things, you know, I taught one of my students, I taught many of my students, but I say, when you're uncomfortable, don't progress. Because if you're uncomfortable and you progress, you're just going to get worse. So when you're uncomfortable, you go back to a position that you're comfortable and neutral. So if I'm passing the guard and somehow there's a hand in my collar and I don't like it, the more I try to pass, the more I expose my neck or my submission. So when I feel something like that, I go back and I find maybe go back to close guard, whatever. But I want to take care of things before they too far along.
Yeah.
So if the guy moves it, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say there's nothing wrong with resetting. You know, go back a few steps and start over.
Yeah. The guy moves his hip a little too much and I don't feel comfortable. I go back to zero. I go right back into where the hip was before that I liked. And I never progress unless I am feeling comfortable where I am.
Yeah, and you touched on something really important. Like as an instructor, I've heard this question many, many, many times. I get stuck here. I get caught here. How do I escape this position? How do I escape top control? How do I escape side control? Right. But nobody ever asked, or rarely they ask, how do I avoid these positions? Because if I avoid these positions, that problem never exists. It just, we never get there. And it's still important to understand how you escape, but it's a very different mindset. Right? If I'm not allowing my partner to get to that spot, my risk is by far lower.
Yes.
Am I wrong on that?
No, absolutely right. And then the other thing is you frustrate them because they're not getting anything. And then they start making mistakes. They start getting hasty. They start trying to do too much. And that's when you take advantage of their anxiousness, basically.
What was one of the biggest things? Like, if you could, narrow down to just one sentence or one thing from Royler and Rickson, was the one thing that like you got from them? Is there one?
From Rickson, that rat thing was a big deal.
Yeah.
From Royler, one of the things that marked me the most is he said, the most important thing for you is to know who you want to train with. There's got to be a reason for you to train with somebody.
Explain.
So like when you're young, and when I got good, I wanted to train always with the biggest guys and the toughest guys because I wanted to test myself. So if a big guy would come in, I would go with them. Then as I started understanding that I could deal with the bigger guys, there was no point training with them because they were too big. It was easy for me to replace guard. So then I would train with somebody that really was a good guard passer, or I would train with somebody that was good taking the back. There was like specific reasons to train with people. And then as I got older, the most important thing was to train with people that I wouldn't get hurt. And if you train with somebody really big and you roll weird, goes a foot or an ankle or whatever. But all the trainings had to have a purpose, basically. All the trainings had to have a purpose, an objective, and you pick. And Rickson, like one of the things, well, same line, Rickson would say, well, when I train with somebody that is lesser than me, which most people are, he would limit what he would use so that it would be a challenge for him. So there is always like an objective to the training.
Yeah, and I think this you touch on something really important, right? Different methods of training and different ways to train. So if I enter a room and there's somebody who's by far bigger and more skilled than I am, I'm going to take a very different approach versus when I train with somebody who's smaller and maybe this is their first month. It doesn't mean that both of these guys couldn't challenge me. They will challenge me just in different ways. I have to find a purpose how I'm going to train with them, right? This kind of goes into this philosophy of sparring with a purpose or training with a purpose. What's my goal? How I'm going to achieve that goal?
Yeah. And like one of the things we do, like in our training, is we have a lot of beginners, new white belts. And so when we go with them and one of my training partners, assistants, I tell them, obviously go easy, but I said, you always want to get something from the training so you can go and get a submission or get a sweep, but not finish the submission. Mm-hmm. But you always got to do something. So for instance, if I'm training with somebody who's not so good, it's my time to just explore taking the back. But I take the back and I let him back. Take the back and I let him back. I let him do the stuff. Let them learn the balance, let them use their things. But so I take in the back, or else I go choke. And I just kind of, do a little bite. Don't make him tap because it serves no purpose for me, but that's how you progress, really. You just,
And I've heard some instructors or black belts even say that they prefer training with lower belts because there's this unpredictable factor. If you train with a black belt, somebody you've known for years, you can read their mind. You can literally, every step is so predictable. We know each other. But if you roll with somebody who's never done this before, or maybe it's their first month, even first 6 months, their decision-making process is so different that it's by far more challenging to predict what's going to happen. And that is a factor of challenge, right?
Oh yeah. If for instance, we do a lot of street fighting training, not MMA, but street fighting, self-defense. And if you really want to be surprised, just go with a person who has no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they just do crazy things you never expected. And, first of all, you got to protect yourself because there'll be a crazy elbow or a headbutt. They don't mean to do it. They're just kind of spazzing.
Yeah.
But that's the reality when you have a street fight aggression. There's no Joe McCarthy or, are you ready? Are you ready? Let's get, no, they just go crazy. They just go crazy. They're not comfortable fighting. They're high adrenaline going. And so when you go against a new person and they have no idea what they're doing, that's the experience that you're going to get.
Yeah.
So, but you got to be careful so you don't hurt them when you don't get hurt.
It's a survival mode, essentially.
Survival mode.
Right.
Survival mode.
Yeah.
They have no clue. All they know is survive.
So you go through this beautiful journey of yours, and where is this happening? California or?
Well, in the beginning, the first class was in Nelson's. It was San Diego, and then Rickson was Laguna Niguel. And then when Royce started fighting UFC, Rickson started fighting in Japan. So he would stop teaching, and I turned to Rickson. I said, "Hey, who do I go to?" I said, "Hey, best person to go is Royler." I said, "Well, Royler is in Brazil." He goes, I was driving 1 hour first to Laguna Niguel, then I was driving 2.5 hours to Santa Monica, where Rickson had his academy, and then Brazil. So then I started traveling to Rio, and I would spend a month in Rio, and basically be in the academy all morning, go home, eat, and then come back in the afternoon or the evenings sometimes. And and then I come back, and I had academies that I trained in California, but the heavy instruction was just spending all day with those guys, And then Rickson came back, and I would drive to his house and spend the day with him from time to time.
Do you know the magnitude of the knowledge and what you are surrounded by at that time? I mean, right now, there are so many phenomenal black belts today in the world. There's no question about it, but people literally would pay endless amount of money or kill for hanging out with Rickson or Royler, or honestly, to hang out with you. It's. Do you know what are you surrounded by? Like, do you even do you grasp the magnitude of what's going on?
Oh yeah. I had there was no doubt I was around greatness, and I tried to soak every minute of it. And then as time went by, we became really, really close. So they're both like my brothers. And so now I have a relationship with them that I'm a friend, I'm a brother, ha, 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 ha. But when it comes to jiu-jitsu, I'm total awe still, like master, like really master. Yeah. And the difference they made in my life, there's not enough words to explain.
Well, I mean, that has to be so empowering. I mean, me just listening to this, I'm speechless. So.
Well, what I was wondering, just on a side note, is when you would get back from these month-long trips, were the people in the gyms you were training with, were they all over you? Were you keeping it to yourself or sharing it?
Well, I am a sharing person, but Rickson basically told me, he said, "You're too nice of a guy. You're going to show all these things that I'm teaching you, and they're going to use it against you." And then there's another funny story. There's a real funny story. So one time I don't remember if I went to compete in the Worlds or went to one of these 1 month things, and came back, and I was like, man, I was at the academy. I was in Rio. I was just really doing well. I wasn't killing everybody, but I was, feeling really good and doing well. So I came back and I took a class with Rickson, or private, or I was just hanging out. We trained. And he finished training. He looks at me and said, "Gerry, went to Brazil and you came back dangerous. All this malice. You're just moving around left and right. You're just like and I'm feeling really good, right?" And he goes, "You're just like an eagle with no feathers. You're going flop, 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 and you fall. You're not accomplishing anything with all your movement." And I go, "Oh my gosh." I never forget.
I'm noticing the pattern.
Yeah, animals.
He builds you up, and then he tells you the reality.
Yeah. Here, you feel so good. At that time, I felt so good. "You're like an eagle." I said, "Finally, I get a compliment." I finally, with no feathers, flop, 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 flop. So he always kept me humble. I mean, not that I had any reason not to be, but you know, you're just. But yeah, you come back, and of course, I didn't keep everything a secret. You know, I had people that I cared for and I shared, but it wasn't for just everybody. You know, we just kind of like for very special people, and nowadays, you know, I share everything because you know, it's a different situation.
Well, that was kind of my question now is do you think that some of that fundamental knowledge that, you know, Rickson and Royler and all of these guys, the generation one, if you will, right? If whatever they passed on and whatever they didn't pass on, do you think that's going to get lost at some point? Because I mean, we all have and I don't mean to be negative here, but we all have expiration dates. Like, I mean, it's at some point, if we don't pass this on and the people who we pass it on to continue passing the baton, I mean, do you think that, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, for one thing, like both Rickson and Royler have online training.
Yeah.
And Royler has a lot of associations he shows. But Rickson, for instance, he never wanted to teach anybody that he couldn't see the ice. Like he wanted to be breathing the same air. So he had to be in person so that he knows. And then more recently, he realized that he has a gift and a legacy that he needs to share. So he started doing his online classes, and I subscribed to it. I trained with him for forever, and I actually a paid subscriber because I just, oh my gosh, I forgot this, and oh my gosh, this detail I forgot. But you know, they did enough instructors and black belts, but nobody is them, you know. So you will lose some, but there's new, you know, amazing people, you know. There's old amazing people, Hansel, Hoyce. I mean, it's just I don't have as much experience with them, but Roger and so forth, you know. There's a lot of amazing people. They're furthering their fundamental knowledge forward, you know.
So all these years, you gained this knowledge from all these guys. What's your approach to life now? I mean, you know, you've been on the mat. You've been a black belt.
21 years.
21 years, right?
Yeah.
Time, right? And plus adding all the time prior to that. I mean, that's a lot of knowledge, a lot of mat time. Right?
Yeah.
How are you utilizing that today? What's your philosophy on jiu-jitsu? What's your philosophy on life? How do you pass that information on?
My philosophy on life is we're here to help people, help empower people. So that's kind of what I do. And I only associate with people that I find that they're good people. I don't like anybody with any bad energies, you know. So if you can be a world champion surfer that wants to train with me or a famous person. If you have bad energy, I just don't want to deal with you. I don't want to share. I don't want to be in the room with you. But if you're a good person, good at heart, you know, and especially if you had tough times in your life and I can be of help, that's where I'm at, just to help and, you know, pass on my knowledge. You know, at some point, you know, when Grandmaster was alive and we would go to his house once in a while and he would share this deep knowledge and you would just go, oh my gosh, you know, and there's not a whole lot of great things that happen when you get older, but the knowledge certainly makes up, you know. So he would say some things and you would just go, psh. And I'm hoping, I mean, not comparing myself to him, but at all, but I have knowledge, I have a lot of life experience, and I try to help people and share as much as I can with the right people.
Yeah, I mean, those are definitely you know, principles to live by, and I do appreciate you sharing all that with us. What was the first time you met Grandmaster?
First time I met was at the Gracie Academy in Rio de Janeiro, and he would come once a week. I believe it was either Tuesdays or Wednesdays, and he showed up, and I said, "Oh my gosh, you know, meeting him," and I said, "I have to have a private or two with him. I just want to be able to tell. I don't have any kids, but I want to be able to tell people that I had a class with Grandmaster." So we had two classes, and was pretty unbelievable too, because I mean, he was 80 some years old at that time, you know, maybe 80, but you know, just an older man. And he let me mount, put one hand in his collar, and he said, "Okay, finish me." And I think I was purple belt at the time. And he would just do tiny little moves, and you couldn't find his collar, you couldn't find anything. And then he went in my guard, and he said, "I'm going to pass your guard this way." And I go, "Okay." And it was like nothing I could do. Nothing I could do. And
So empowering.
oh my gosh, that was just so. And then after that, we were fortunate enough to go to his house a few times with Royler, and a couple of times by ourselves. You know, he was an amazing man, amazing human, beyond human. He was, you know, just an idol, super person.
Man, what a great memories. I could listen to these stories like literally all day long.
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Let's switch gears a little bit, because aside from jiu-jitsu, you are very passionate about surfing.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
if I understand correctly, surfing came in first.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
came
yeah.
in first. Yeah.
Sorry, I feel like I'm repeating or finishing,
No.
but it's just from
It did,
the
it
research.
did,
Yeah.
it did. Because I started surfing in 71, and then jiu-jitsu was just pre-UFC 1, which I think was 81, 82. So I was avid surfer. You know, I still surf. If there's waves, I surf every day. You know?
So what got you into surfing? I've never surfed, so I'm a rookie. So
Yeah.
if I ask a stupid question, please forgive
No.
me here.
No, we lived in Rio, and culture in Rio is a lot about the beach.
Yeah.
And I used to body surf a lot. And then I started watching people surf, and I go, wow, that seems like, you know. So I bought a used board, and me and a friend bought a used board, and we went one day early morning. It was like perfect little waves for beginners. And lo and behold, my first wave, I stood up. I fell after 5 seconds, but that sensation, I was just going, oh my gosh, I got to do this. So then, you know, some of my best friends said, oh, you know, you're going to do this for 6 months and you're going to quit. And that's like, you know, it's been a few years.
A few.
Yeah. I saw, if we can talk about Ginastica a little bit.
Yeah.
I was watching a video, and you're training these people, and these movements for surfing are so similar to the movements in jiu-jitsu. And I was just wondering, is that something that just came about naturally? Is it something you worked on, that you noticed over the years?
Well, we had, you know, a lot of, I did sports all my life. So I did training all my life. I did fencing, I did track and field, indoor soccer, you name it, cycling. So I always wanted to do extra things, you know. And then over time, Rickson had all these preparations, because he learned Ginastica from a master called Orlando Cani, which was the original guy that had Ginastica. And he had all these breathing and animal movements, and he would teach me some. And then I had other people that influenced me, like there's a guy called Paul Check, who trained, you know, the Chicago Bulls and a lot of professional athletes, but more in plyometrics or balancing on balls and bands and stuff. And then Alvaro Romano, who was the current guy in Ginástica Natural, he taught me quite a bit, taught me a lot. But so I used all these things, and I was trying to better myself. So I had a mat room in my house with bands and, you know, weights and everything. So I do all these things to help my surfing. So then I came to Hawaii, and I started training some of the pro surfers. And the thing is, like, as the best day of my life that I surfed, I couldn't do 1/100th of what they could do. So then I had to kind of like, okay, so I give them something, and they would give me feedback. Oh, this is not working out for me. This is I like this. I don't like this because this is making me, you know, my bottom turn too long, where I'm not feeling comfortable in a certain position. And through that feedback, started adding a lot of different things to this call it a program that I currently do. I'm fortunate enough to train the best surfer in the world, John Florence, and he is just a spectacular young man, and he just keeps coming back to me. Let's try this, let's try that, and we try, and it works. We add it to the program. And it's my philosophy is like, you have to have an open mind and progress. So if you think about it, like Grandmaster Helio, he learned from his brother Carlos, and then if he just, Carlos learned from Maeda, if they just stuck with what they learned, we wouldn't be doing jiu-jitsu, we'd be doing judo. But they kept progressing. And then came, all the greats, Master Carson, Halls, Hicks, and they're all progressing, Hoist. I mean, you name it. So my philosophy in the training, especially the preparation for surfers, is to have an open mind, and whatever feedback they give me, I analyze and it gets added. So I have a associate called Mahina Maeda, and she's like one of the best female surfers in the world, and she is also one of the trainers. And she, being that she's incredible surfer, she and a trainer, she comes back with things. So we modified our breathing quite a bit. We modified some of the movements that we do quite a bit because of her feedback. That, oh no, I like this, because first she learned from me, and then she would practice, and then she said, oh, I find this better. So we adjusted. We still adjust all the time. And turns out, like John is in the Olympics. She's in the Olympics. Jordy Smith is in the Olympics. There's quite a few people that I train that are in the Olympics, and it's just incredible.
Have you done? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just, most important is to keep an open mind and accept what they tell you.
Have you done some of this with jiu-jitsu guys? You talked about a lot of surfings and applying these skills.
Yeah, I have, but my focus has been in surfing.
Mm-hmm.
So my focus is, there's things that we could do for jiu-jitsu, like rolls and things like that we don't even bother, because it's not applicable to surfing. So we just do things that are very surf specific. Like for instance, we do paddling with bungees. I mean, for a jiu-jitsu person, it would be, like takedown drills, but we don't do takedown drills. We do paddling, because paddling is one of the most important things in surfing.
Right.
So it's just very, very, very narrowly focused in outstanding surfing.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, some of the stuff that I've seen is like a lot of hip movements, right? A lot of things that are going to help them stand up quickly and powerfully,
stand up quickly,
balance, stuff like that. It's pretty cool stuff. And I think that, it's funny. I haven't been training very much the past couple of weeks, and I can already feel it like in my lower back and stuff. And I think if you just keep doing those drills, that, even if you're not actively rolling, you're still going to feel good,
Right.
And I was like, man, I got to get moving today. And
first of all, you shouldn't be admitting you have not been training in front of professor. What are you doing, man?
Honesty, right? We talked about being honest and open,
honest,
right? Being honest and open.
No, the truth is, at some point I was doing just surfing or just jiu-jitsu, and I got stiffer and stiffer, and I couldn't surf as well, and I couldn't. There's certain positions in jiu-jitsu, obviously, that you're either flexible, or you're not going to, be comfortable. So you do less and less. And then next thing you know, you have 2 or 3 positions that you can't do because you're just so stiff. So when I started training these people, it helped me quite a bit.
Are there things that are similar between jiu-jitsu and surfing? You've been doing this for decades at this point. Do you find overlapping things, things that complement the other?
Yeah, quite a bit. Surfing, you're reacting to nature. Waves are different every day, and you bump, and there's a wind, and there's this and there's that. So you have to have like ability to adjust on the fly. And jiu-jitsu, you're going against the best fighting machine ever created, which is another human, and he has no interest in what you want to do. He has interest in what he wants to do. So you just pretty much have to adjust on the fly and learn patience. So they both require a lot of patience, because if you go surfing for an hour, and you catch 10 waves, which is a lot for an hour. The wave is like 7 seconds. So you're staying out an hour and you're basically standing up a minute 10. So you're basically sitting there quite a bit. And in jiu-jitsu, the patience that it takes for you to progress, is just amazing. You have to be patient. You have to be stubborn. You have to be resilient. And same qualities in surfing. And then also the quick decision making. They both apply, body control, understanding where you are when you're upside down or somebody's, so that's the crossover really.
Do you think that patience required for both of these sports is one of the main factors? Some individuals just don't continue with the journey. They have difficulty, being patient. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. You think, some other forms of martial arts, you can progress quicker and, like for instance, just in boxing, the basic boxing, it's really easy to get to a good level of boxing is very complicated. But you go into a boxing gym and you learn to punch a little bit and you can be, a white belt of boxing, but you feel like you can box. A white belt of jiu-jitsu, you don't feel like you can be a jiu-jitsu guy. All martial arts and sports, to get to a high level, it takes a lot. But there are certain things that, the early stages are real simple. And surfing is, especially then with the bad equipment, just to sit down and sit in your board and be able to balance. You'd be sitting there in the lineup and you lose your balance and tip over. It was just the most embarrassing thing, And so, yeah, absolutely. Patience is a most important quality in life.
Yeah, and yet so difficult to achieve.
So difficult.
Yeah, it's a learned behavior for sure.
Yes,
you have to be aware of it, knowledgeable. You have to think about being patient.
Yeah.
In order, I think, to achieve it.
Yeah, and you mentioned something interesting too, which I often say. Like I always, when people ask me, what it took for me to be on the mat for 20 years and so on, and I often say I was just too stupid to quit. I was too stubborn. I just quitting was not an option for me. I just kept pushing forward. But there, you mentioned that earlier, and I find this just interesting that patience and just not accepting of the end is one of the common factors for those who do go through this journey.
Yeah, and focus on the here and now. If you kind of focus on your black belt, oh my gosh, it's going to take 10 years. Oh, it's going to take 12 years. I have some people that have been 20 years training and they don't have a black belt. They could, but they, I think Luis Limon, Rickson's assistant, and now has a huge successful academy in Maui. I think he was brown belt for 10 years. And he was incredible. It just, nobody bothered. And Rickson, I don't know, whatever reasoning there was. And then finally one day he got a black belt. So you have to focus on the here and now. And in life too, you have to focus on the here and now, because you have no control about tomorrow, really. You plan and you use the past to help predict the future, but it's still, who would have thought, like this pandemic thing that we're living with, whether you believe it or not, it's affected the whole world.
Yeah, that is true.
I don't want to go into opinions and stuff, but who would have known that something that incredible? And we had a friend who was she's 95 years old, and she said, "I'd never seen anything like this in my life," So.
Yeah, there's definitely things that happen around us that are completely out of our control, whether we like it or not. It is what it is. Call it for what it is, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
All day, every day.
All day, every day. Yeah. You mentioned belts and one of your friends being a brown belt for a very long time. What's your philosophy on belts in general? We don't have to get deep into this, but I'm curious, how this compares from way back in the day when you training with Rickson and Royler and some of these phenomenal instructors to what it's seen today.
The emphasis back then was more in survival, self-defense. street fighting, be able to defend yourself against bigger, stronger opponents with no rules. Nowadays, there is a lot of focus on competition. Nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
But belts, you know, are a reward for your efforts and where you stand in life. And a belt, for instance, for a 60-year-old is different than a that's just wants to be better in life, is different than a belt for a 18-year-old or a 21-year-old who wants to compete. So there's different levels, same belt, different reasons. But belts are basically a reward and also a warning to other people. So if you go against somebody, you know, I remember one time my friend Royler Garcia was like a monster, super strong, super good. And he forgot his belt. And we went to this academy and forgot his belt. Somebody gave him a white belt. And the first guy that liked to train, you know, with people and rough people up, he goes, train with you. And Kai submitted him 3 times in a minute. And the guy said, "You're no white belt." You know, no, I forgot my belt. So it serves as a warning too, you know. Tan.
Big flashing red lights.
Yeah.
That's happened here with people too, so it's fun.
Yeah.
Did you want to say something?
No, I was just gonna say you don't know what you're in store for when they don't have belts on, right?
Well, but it's
Right.
that's kind of the story of jiu-jitsu, right? Even irrelevant of the belts, sometimes we see, you know, a person who just does not appear like they should be moving in directions that they are moving. And that's big part of jiu-jitsu, I think, you know, finding these abilities and learning these skills of balance and weight distribution and transitions and so on. And just like you said yourself, I mean, Grandmaster Helio on top of you, or no, you are on top of him, and
nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah. No, and you have people that you go and look at them and say, "Oh, that's gonna be so easy." There was one guy, James Nielsen. He trained with us, and he was an accountant or a numbers guy, and his diet was like milk and cookies. And his body looked
I can relate.
His body was like milk and cookies. He didn't have a single muscle in his body, you know, a little flab on his tummy, and, you know, kind of like a goofy looking guy. Oh my gosh, he was a terror. He was a terror. He would just, and he could go for 50 minutes an hour. He wouldn't even be breathing hard. You finish training with him and you'd just be like, okay, next. You know, and
I bet he has some crazy stories. We should talk to him.
I saw one time a guy had come and he'd won the Pan Am's. This is a long time ago. He won the Pan Am's brown belt, and James, I think, was blue belt or whatever. And the guy passed his guard, got to the side. James somehow got him on a choke, and the guy didn't believe it. Mounted James and started flopping like a fish in a frying pan and tapped, you know, from the mount for a choke. Mm-hmm. So he was just an amazing guy. We had a crazy group, you know, Jocko Willink. I don't know if you heard of him. Jocko is one of our training partners, and Jeff Higgs, another Navy SEAL, and Dean Lister. You know, it was a great time.
We just talked to Dean a couple of weeks ago. Yeah,
but those are guys. When you look at them, though, you know what you're getting. I think.
Those are. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, those aren't cookies and
milk.
Listen.
No. I would not want to get caught with Dean in front of me in the back alley, or Jocko even.
Well, I think I said when we talked to Dean, he's the guy that if a guy that looks like him walks into the bar, I don't even make eye contact.
Right?
Those guys are on another plateau.
Another level,
similar to what we're saying, though, I was out with my brother and I was talking about, you know, guys. I was relatively new to jiu-jitsu at the time, and I was saying that there's guys there that you wouldn't give a second thought about on the street, and man, what they could do to you, you know, if they were determined, or, you know, if something had gone off, if something had happened. And I think that that's one of those amazing things about this martial art, is that it turns people who, like yourself, really, right, smaller guy, that you wouldn't think could be as dangerous as they are, or as formidable, maybe is a better way to put it. And they can really they can really show you something, defend themselves, and they're just in another world as far as it goes, you know, in self-defense.
Well, if you think about it, like if you train fighting 6 days a week, in an effective, good martial art, and you train with good people and you're good instructor, you're going to have a tremendous advantage over somebody who's never fought, So, it's just, and it makes you calm and it makes you confident, and you don't get into as many, confrontations, because you just know, come on,
Well, and I think that's the interesting part, in my opinion, is not that there's anybody who trained for 10 years, forget about more, just 10 years.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure they have enough experience and enough knowledge to really take anybody apart who hasn't done it. Right. And yet I bet you the majority of these guys would not even want to get in a confrontation. It's not because they are not dangerous. It's not that they can't do it. It's just, they know what possibly could happen, their risks, and
yes,
they just want to remove themselves from that circumstances. It's like, that's what's interesting about it. I mean, like, you would think that you're learning how to fight, and in reality, I think you really learning how to avoid fighting.
Yep, exactly. And the consequences, things that could happen. I've been injured enough in crazy, not somebody trying to be mean or anything, just an accident. And that a street fight is just a semi out of control situation that you sort of control, but you just learn to avoid, and you have a confidence to say, I'm not feeling threatened by you. And that confidence most of the time is enough for them to just go, maybe I shouldn't mess with this guy.
Yeah, I think so.
I agree. Let's change gears a little bit before we finish this up today. You write books. You've been writing for quite a bit. There's quite a few books out there with your name on it. You're quite successful with your involvement with Abu Dhabi, right? With ADCC, right? Like, where did it start? Like, why writing? Was this one of your passions aside from surfing and jiu-jitsu?
No, it just was a happenstance. So, long time ago in Australia, in Nelson, this Arab guy showed up, him and his British boss, and he, started training with us. And the British boss was just, he was just not pompous, but, British, they have a way of talking is just super proper. And so anyways, they would come and they would train always near my times, And then I turned to the Arab guy. I said, hey, I'm going to teach you how to beat your boss up. Because, obviously, the British guy was getting the most attention at the time. And long story short, turns out the Arab guy was Sheikh Tahnoon Zayed, the creator of ADCC and all that stuff. So when he had the first event, he said, hey, you got to come. So I went there, and it was a tremendous experience. And so he had AD Combat, which was the website for Abu Dhabi. And he said, kid, I want you, he didn't call me kid, he called me Gerry. And he said, I want you to help me get somebody to write about jiu-jitsu. You're around all these jiu-jitsu people. I said, okay. So I paid this much, and he has to write 1 story, 20 stories a month. So I found the person, and the first month, the person wrote 2 stories. So then he turned to me and he said, hey, this is not working out. Can you write for us for a little bit? I said, I don't know how to write, and just, and he said, well, look, just write for a little bit until you get somebody, and it'll be fine. So I started writing little, Royler went to the gym today and trained takedowns. But when nobody has any other website or any information, it's like oh my gosh. Or Saulo is a black belt in judo. Oh my gosh. Or so-and-so. So I give little one-liners, and it became pretty darn successful. And then the Sheikh came to me and said, no, you got to keep doing. And then what happened is then one of the magazines, I don't remember the name before, but it was Curtis Publications, and they did 1 issue called Grappling Magazine. First issue was just supposed to be 1 issue off, and the head writer Todd Hester invited me to write, and I said, I don't know how to write. He said, just give the general stuff and I'll correct it, I'll edit and make it into an article. So I did that, and the grappling was supposed to be a one-off, and then the guy said, "Oh, it's sold out, so we're gonna do every 6 months." Every 6 months it was gonna be 3 months, and they said, "No, monthly." So all of a sudden I had to write a monthly column about jiu-jitsu and articles, and that guy Todd helped me a lot because I would send him bits and pieces, and he would just kind of make it into a story or an article, and then I started learning, how to structure something like that. And then one Sunday afternoon, Sheikh Tahnoun calls me at home and says, "Gerry, we need to make a book about jiu-jitsu. It's going to be the jiu-jitsu Bible, because jiu-jitsu has no manuals, and it's going to be a jiu-jitsu Bible." I said, "Okay." So we talked a little about it, and then we put together a great team of people, and we made the first book, Renzo and Royler, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Theory and Technique. And that thing went huge. And then the publisher was publishing cookbooks, and then he said, "No more cookbooks. This thing is selling like crazy. We want jiu-jitsu books." So I wrote, in the end, I wrote 21 books. I was involved with 21 books. I wrote mostly, I did 2 or 3 by myself, and the rest with, ultra talented people like Renzo, Royler, Royce, Jean-Jacques, Royler Gracie, Rodrigo Medeiros. I don't remember if I missed anybody.
Yeah, there's quite a few of them. I know I have few of them. So
yeah. It was a great time. Books were just a big deal. And then just this kind of, it went for a few years, and then there was a financial crisis, 2008, and Borders closed 300 stores, and then the publisher just kind of couldn't continue. It was just too hard.
Yeah, but it's part of the evolution too, right?
Oh, yeah.
But now the videos are surfacing it up, and that is becoming very accessible. And who knows?
Online training,
right? Online training, right? By the time we are phasing out from the business, who knows? Some other things might be going on. Who knows? Maybe you're going to be appearing in 3D at the academy. I mean, I don't know. I mean, who knows?
Well, you just never know. Look at it. Like, we had instructionals were VHS tapes. People don't know what VHS tapes. And then they went to DVDs, and now it's just online. And the beauty of this evolution is that, for instance, AD Combat, if it became so big, but if the internet didn't exist, there was no way to communicate. You had newspapers which printed daily, and magazines would be monthly, and you couldn't reach. I mean, to be in a magazine, you needed to know people. To be on TV, you needed. And then the other thing is, if you had, a TV program, let's say you're fortunate enough, it was just like your area. And with the internet, so you had this mass of people pulverized. You have people in the Ukraine, you have 10 guys in Ghana, 12 guys. So in the end, when you put it all together, you have an audience. And with a TV show or a newspaper, unless it's a major TV show, you don't reach. And it gave access to, klutzes like me to be, writing. There was, one guy on AD Combat, he was Eddie Goldman, and he was he was an incredible writer, and he was in the, presidential reporters pool and everything. When he talked and the way he wrote, it was just. And I would never even have an inkling of a chance to be even a reporter for a local newspaper, but the internet, and, it's still a great, evolution going,
Yeah, no. And I think beautiful part about behind this entire story, or this journey that you talk about right now, is that maybe there is some coincidence factor behind all of this, but at the same time, the one good favor, the one good gesture that you show towards an individual paid back in this tremendous experience of you doing something that you didn't even want to do. You learn a brand new skill set. And listen, I don't know what you think, but being involved in 20 books, that's an accomplishment.
No,
I mean, that's huge.
That's huge. No, I don't, there are influential people in my life, my parents, my wife, and Sheikh Tahnoun was a huge influence. He made me very, very famous just because, you know, he was just, I mean, the scope of everything, the first ADCCs and all that. But one of the things, you know, coincidence and good fortune, but Rickson says there's no coincidences in life. He said there's no, it's meant to be, you know, because I was wondering him, I said, how is that I got to be friends with you? How is that I got to be friends with Royler? How is that I got to train John? How is that I got to train or write all these books? You know, it's just luck. Or no, I said, no luck. It's just the universe conspiring to make things good, you know, and for you, for other people, they all have their own universe. But he said there's no coincidences.
What's your view on this? Do you agree with that? There's no
coincidences? Absolutely.
Everything happens for a reason.
Everything happens for a reason. If you're, you know, it's meant, these people that come into your life are attracted to you by some sort of a, I don't know what to say, some sort of a something, but they come into your life and there's a reason for them to come into your life. And if you're a good person, you hopefully attract good people. I have attracted bad people, but I'm quick to learn and discard them. But, you know, also the ability to make good decisions, because you meet bad people, you need to kind of like get rid of them, you know, and you can make a lot of good decisions. You make one bad decision and it can set you back a lot. But there's no coincidences. Everyone that I've met, everyone that I am associated with deeply, there's a reason, and they came into my life and I came into their lives for a good reason, you know, and it's to enrich our lives and to make you know, make us do what we do better and be better and make us better people, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's the beautiful part right now. Listen, first of all, I'm like speechless. I don't even know what to say because you got really deep on this. but listen, we appreciate
Yes.
all of this. This is pure wisdom, in my opinion. Often we don't talk about these things. We kind of are hyper focus on us and what is happening right now, and we don't look outside who we surround ourselves with and how to pay forward, how to pay back, and so on. And all that is really important, not only for us as individuals to get better, but also for our community. Big, large, doesn't matter. Small, doesn't matter.
Right.
All that is shaped based on our decisions and who we surround ourselves with.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Before we wrap this up, Professor, we have we do this at every episode, and we don't tell any of our guests this, but we have 5 questions for you. If you don't mind, we'll ask you 5 questions. They're kind of rapid questions. Some of them are funny, some of them are more serious, but it's always a good way to kind of wrap up the episode with that. So give us the first thing that comes to your mind, and you know we'll kind of explore that. Gerry will take a lead on that.
Let's do it. 5 questions. What was it like the first time you stepped on the mat?
What did it feel like?
What did it feel like? It felt like I was in a place that I had no idea what I was doing. I just went there to basically pay a promise that I promised my friend that I would go do that.
I still feel like that sometimes.
I do sometimes too.
Yeah. Number 2 is, what has been your most rewarding achievement?
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
On the mats, off the mats, whatever you feel.
I'm curious what you're going to say.
Most rewarding achievement. There are many.
Pick one.
Most rewarding achievement has been an association with a young lady that me and my wife have helped, that had a rough upbringing, and she blossomed into an amazing person. So that's really the most rewarding achievement.
That's wonderful.
Good for you. Well, shout out to the young lady. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Have you ever wanted to quit?
Nope, never.
No,
never crossed your mind.
Never. Quit is not in my vocabulary. On everything, doing books was a lot of times a struggle. That's not in my not in my nature.
So what? So you mentioned the books being a struggle at some points, right? And obviously, you even mentioned yourself that you're not the best writer. You know, it was not easy. What's your mental thoughts? You in this project, you're writing, you honestly don't even want to do this. How do you overcome these obstacles? They are completely out of your control at this point.
No, I wanted to do the books. I did want to do the books. I didn't want to start writing.
Okay.
But once I started writing, I wanted to keep writing. I wanted to do the books. The struggle with the books was that most of the time I was doing a book with one of my heroes, one of my best friends. And I wanted to do something that they would be proud of and that I would be proud of. But I didn't want to just do any less for them than they deserved. Yeah, and that's a tough goal, you know, because you look at somebody like, you know, not quite a god, but a master, an influential person in your life. You want to do the best. And, you know, but that's how I do things, everything. I want to do my best every time. So, but no, never wanted to quit. And that's the important thing is just the difficulty was always trying to live up to my standards for them.
Beautiful.
Great. Describe your feelings when you got your black belt.
We didn't even talk about that. Yeah.
Feelings when I frankly, I don't remember, but it was an achievement.
Do you remember the day?
I don't remember the day. It was sometime in 2000, I want to say. And it was an achievement, but at the same time, it wasn't a, you know, it was just like it was a step. I never thought that was the end. So it was just like, oh, wow, this is amazing. I'm so happy. But I never thought that was the end game.
See, this is the interesting part, because more of the old school guys we talk to, more of them I hear say, it was just not, it's like not in a disrespecting way, but the magnitude of it was not what it feels like it's today. Today is students set a goal for themselves to achieve their
right.
And then I feel like a lot of you guys who've been on the mat for decades, first of all, maybe the expectation wasn't there. Maybe you weren't thinking about it. And maybe it's just, I don't know. You tell me. Doesn't it feel that way?
I never thought about, you know, I remember one of my friends that said all I wanted was to get to a purple belt. You know, one of my friends, and he's a black belt. He's an older guy too. He was older than me when he started. And, but I just kind of like, I mean, obviously it was an accomplishment and I'm proud of it, super proud. And, you know, but it was just a step in a journey. I just, you know, it's like, you know, like one time I'm talking to John Florence and he won the world title and he said, wow, that was my dream, but what now? Mm-hmm. The next day he just goes surfing, you know, and I got my black belt. The next day I go train. You know, and I kept on training, and the belt, you know, like Grandmaster Costa said, just 2.5 inches cover your, and you just put the belt, and you know, it's nice and it's an accomplishment. Every time I get a degree, I feel honored, but I don't know. It's just, you know, it's just part of a journey.
I think when you're a little older, yeah, part of the journey, but it's like, it's just another step in that. Because you know it's not going to end. I think when you get older, you realize this isn't going to end, and it's just natural progression.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly right.
So speaking of this belt, do you wash your belt?
Nope.
That was quick.
No,
never wash my belt.
No, for those old school, or you know, the what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to wash away your knowledge, all that stuff, or is
no, I just, you know, it's tradition. Like, you know, I always wear white gis. It's tradition. You know, the only time I wore a blue gi was when I was doing one book that I was part of and to just contrast, I wore a blue gi. But, you know, I always wear white gis. And when we train, we call our class the white robe mass, MASS, like a mass of praying. We're not religious. We just kind of called there's a right robe mass. So there was a time when you couldn't gather, you know, because COVID, and you couldn't gather, but you could gather for religious ceremonies. So we came up with the idea, well, we're just having a religious ceremony, white robe mass. But, you know, like the tradition that I heard, nobody washes their belts. And like the white gi, at one time, Master Pedro Sauer told me that somebody asked him, "You ever wear a blue belt? Will you ever wear a blue belt?" He goes, "Yeah, I'll wear a blue belt. The day I see Grandmaster Helio with a blue belt, I'll wear a blue belt." No, not a blue belt, a blue gi.
A blue gi.
Would you ever wear a blue gi? Oh, yeah, I'll wear a blue gi. The day I watch Grandmaster with a blue gi, I'll wear a blue gi. So basically never.
Well, I just bought a new white one. So I guess that's the one I got to wear from now on. I'll put the blue one up up on a shelf.
To each his own. I just I like tradition. And I one of the greatest qualities on a person is loyalty. And I'm very loyal to the people that are around me. And, their thing was white gis. And so to show respect to them, I wear a white gi.
Well, and part of, important factor of a community is those traditions, carrying on those traditions, right? And some might not agree with it. Many of them do, and that's fine. To each their own.
Like you said, I have no problem. I have no problem. You can wear a camouflage gi, whatever, just not in my class.
No camouflage gis. No.
Yeah. People have been asked to leave the academy based on what they wear sometimes.
Yeah. One time we were at Grace Academy, Rio de Janeiro, and the assistant instructor, Vini Aeta, he had a blue top and a black pants.
Oh no!
Oh boy!
And he, and whatever. He was there, and the Grandmaster showed up, and he went to the door of the mat, and Vini was just going, Grandmaster, I had a problem with the washing machine, and this is all I could find. And he goes, "That's okay, my son. That's okay, my son." I never saw him with a colored gis ever again.
Fix that washing machine right away.
Oh yeah.
What a great stories. Well, listen, Professor, thank you for sharing all the knowledge. Thank you for sharing all the wisdom, all the stories. I mean, I've had a blast. I don't know about Gerry, but I had a blast. This was amazing having you here. If anybody wants to connect with you, what's the best way to find you on social media, websites? Where are you on this great world of internet?
Instagram at Kid Peligro. That's the best way to connect.
Well,
Wonderful.
There you go.
All right.
Absolutely.
Great.
Well, let's wrap this up. Once again, thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing all the stories.
Yeah, great.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. It's just been a pleasure. It's been really fun.
The pleasure was ours. Super insightful. Had a great time. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to ROL Radio. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review and help us make the show even more amazing. For future episodes, check out our website and follow us on all major podcast platforms. Take care.